Peterson.
Here.
Mrs. Hanneman. Mrs. Platt. Mrs. Piskey.
Don't think we have audience to visitors, so I will start with 2:110. These first three are all board ones, so Mary, I'll let you give your input on it too. Really, for 2:110, the big changes are that they changed the word secretary to capitalize. So, number one is presided all meetings, which is kind of usually implied. But the senior board member clause, they took out. So I'm assuming that, and we've had this come up a couple of times, I'm assuming that if the the president's not there and the vice president's not there, what the board would just do is nominate somebody for pro temp. That's my guess.
Do we want to
Do you want to keep it?
keep it that way so that there is?
We have had to use it.
We have had to use it.
We have had to
It was
use it.
quite the
Yep.
ordeal to figure out.
So I am absolutely okay with that, because it does make things easy to say, walk in and say, you're next one senior.
I think
You want to hold it?
we should leave it
Okay.
in there.
So-
Because then there's just a clear instructions as to
What's next.
what's next, who's
Okay. And
president.
I'm totally fine with that. And we'll keep the other changes as suggested by press, if you're okay with that. Kevin, you good? Communications to and from the board, 2:140. During the board's regular meetings, they changed the wording around a little bit. One, it makes us ensure that we have emails for all of our board members on our home pages, which we do. During the board's regular meetings, report for the board's considerations and all questions or communications submitted through the active electronic link, along with the status of the district response in the board meeting packet. To me, from what I'm understanding is that is an Open Meetings Act requirement or best practice, whatever we want to call it. And when I looked at that, Kelly and I were talking about, so if a board member gets an email that also comes to the superintendent in the kind of the honor of transparency, and fitting back to what our practices are, if one member gets the information, all should get it. What we're going to try to do moving forward here, and I usually try to inform you through the board updates. This right now says that I have to do it now in the board packet. You'll still get them in the updates. What we'll do is we'll create a sheet like what we do for FOIAs of how we've officially responded. The board would get it there, if they're okay with it.
Yep, I
Then
think
we
that
would
will work.
accept the changes as suggested. So we kind of formatted something like that as a sample for
Just kind of like this, Mary, or like the FOIA we put, the
Okay.
request or the date, the subject, and if the request was granted or partially granted, so that's kind of what.
Okay.
And what I would
Using
do.
that format like we do with FOIA minutes.
Yep. And what I would do is too, is also I could put on there to say, updated in weekly update, with a date. Okay.
Yeah, or however it, yeah.
So it's just kind of keeps transparency, so all set of
Sure.
whatever you see. The next one, 2:230, I was okay with accepting the changes. It sounded like that it gave people 5 minutes to talk. A minimum of 20 minutes for any one subject. You could also, if it's, it looks like public comments are going to run long, the board could also grant a minimum of 30 minutes for open public so that they can continue on with business. The board, though, can decide to let it go longer if they choose to, but at least you give some minimums here. My suggestion is I would keep it so that if you get to a subject matter where you need to make things move and people be heard, you have some minimums to keep things moving along.
Yeah, I agree that, yeah, and these are some, I think these minimums would give everybody time to speak and
Yep.
have their say, and like I said, we can always choose to expand it
Yep, if you want to.
if we come across the sticky subject.
Yep.
It happens every now and again.
Yes. 4:20, the fund balances. I was okay with the wording on this. Our old policy said that no less than 20%. So we can keep 15 to 20. or if we want to be consistent with what our old policy was, 20% is calculated for our fund balance. I'm okay with 20%. I don't ever want to be that low, but
That's, yeah.
3 to 6 months usually is where I'm at, which is probably closer to 25. But, so I'd probably say strike 15, let's just go with 20. It's consistent with our old policy. And it really doesn't change anything. 5:180 kind of deals with employee absence and some of the rights that employees have in absences. I would move to accept this because it gives us solid framework to work from for somebody that might try to use those absence guidelines.
That's fine.
And it's in
Yeah,
compliance with
accept this.
FMLA and any other types of meetings that are there.
And within the contract too, it's all.
Yep.
Yep.
6:340, we changed from PARC to IAR, Illinois Assessment of Readiness. So, small changes, but I would suggest accepting them.
Yeah, that's,
I'm just curious why they don't put something down about the state recommended assessment. Then they wouldn't have to change it every time they change the state recommended assessment.
Correct. That'd be good.
But,
there's lawyers that need to keep themselves simple.
correct, I guess.
Or even state required.
Yeah.
The last one we had, this one's kind of a controversial one. So 7:270, there's two different pieces here, I believe, to this one. One is the asthma. It's saying that asthma inhalers, if you have one, you can go ahead and distribute those to students. I was at a law conference on Monday. They didn't talk about the asthma inhalers. Barb has just been at a nurses conference. They did talk about that. The other piece to this one is the medical marijuana. With marijuana becoming legal in January 1, and then them talking about medical use at school, or giving medical medicine at school. There is still some gray area and some arguing going on about how is that going to be done. And Barb, you correct me if I'm wrong on this. Currently, somebody that would have a medical marijuana, if they needed to a dosage of it, they would leave the school grounds, take their dosage, and come back. And it's got to be given by somebody that has their medical marijuana card. Is that correct? So it's not administered at school. This new policy says that, under this new policy says it shall be administered at school. Which, at my law conference, they were saying, it can be administered at school. Their recommendation is you'd still have a person or a parent, whoever has the medical marijuana card, come in and administer it at school. Right now it says off grounds. We are suggesting that both with medical marijuana and the asthma, there's a lot of debate about whether this is good practice. We're suggesting we table it one more time while
Well,
attorneys fight,
attorneys
nurses
and
associations
they
fight.
work out.
And work out the details. So the asthma side is, we can hold inhalers. Kid has an asthma attack, you can give them an inhaler. The concern there is, with all the different types of inhalers that are out there, you give one to somebody that's allergic to something, you could have a liability problem. And so the nurses.
Right, it's not like it's not like an EpiPen where there's one universal thing. The
So Barb,
inhalers are all, there's a lot of very different medications in inhalers.
So Barbara, you kind of want to explain at your conference a little bit.
Okay. One of the things with the asthma, the undesignated asthma inhaler, it has not passed through all the hoops at state yet. So it is not ready to roll out. It has to go back for one more time for the lawmakers to decide if they're going to allow it. There's like 3 different times that, they make the law or draft it, then it goes out for a recommendation, comes back to them with those recommendations, it goes out, that's where we're at now, it has to go back to state, to the lawmakers. So they have not cleared it yet, so
Yeah, and that came from the
You're jumping
nurses.
the gun.
And when ours came from our attorney, he said that it had been passed, but that on the medical marijuana side was that, you know, that it had not been fully walked through for, you know, administration. So then his advice was, this hasn't been walked through, but my advice would be, you're bringing somebody in to administer it at school. So our comment is let's let them sort this out a little farther before.
correct. The nurses
Before we
still,
change our policy.
because there is never a doctor's order for it. Because it's not regulated, so they do not, doctors cannot say, give them one gummy, because you don't know one gummy from this manufacturer could be this much, one gummy from somebody else could be that much. It's not regulated to be the same amount, you know, handed out. So it is still not a nursing duty. It still has to be a parent or guardian or whoever has this medical clearance,
Okay.
caregiver, whatever, to do it. It's still not a nursing practice,
Okay.
okay? Because we have to have a doctor's order, as nurses, we have to have a doctor's order for anything that we give at school. And they cannot give an order for it because it's not regulated. Other thing I did want to bring up that we talked about at the conference was like with our undesignated EpiPens and the Narcan, which we do have in each one of the buildings, is a Narcan for opioid overdose. And everyone's been trained. But it needs to be stated, and I think it does state in like a student handbook or parents' policy somewhere that they can read it, that they know that we have these on grounds, and in our best judgment, will administer those. But it needs to be said in there someplace, if there's any parent who does not want the undesignated medication given to their child, they have to submit a written statement with their signature on it and date on it that says, I do not want an undesignated EpiPen used on Johnny, for instance. And then they need to sign it and date it. So that, otherwise, we assume that everyone is wanting that, you know, that avenue taken if it comes down to needing it. Whereas if this parent says, I do not want this given to my child, no matter what, just call the ambulance. Fine, we will do that, but we have to have that written statement stopping us from giving it.
And how do you feel would be the best way to do that? Something in the student
It should be in like the
handbook or
student
It's gotta be
something at
handbook or
registration?
for registration, that'd be
Put
fine
it on
too.
the medical, part of the medical form at
Sure.
registration?
Yeah,
Would this be orders to forego life-sustaining treatment?
no, well, not really. To me, that's CPR and AED.
So let's do this.
I'm just trying to figure out which policy
Oh, gotcha.
it would be under.
You're looking at the student handbook right now?
I'm just looking to see what it says, like within our policy that we have in place, because I mean, I would think that would have to be somewhere in policy, and then somebody, you know, there'd be something to the parents then to say. So I'll look up the student handbook.
Look in the student
Yeah,
handbook,
see what the student
because
handbook has to say.
then the student handbook sometimes has more specific, which the board adopts, so that becomes a policy.
I'm just looking.
Here's the other thing I'd say to you, Barb.
Mhm.
You and your nurses should probably look at that.
Yeah.
Get it stated the way you want it,
Mhm.
and we'll put that in the next year's handbook. The other thing that came up at my conference was CBD, or the CBD stuff.
Yeah.
Their recommendation was is that, yes, it's over the counter, and kids could take it like, or bring it into school like an aspirin, but they said they shouldn't be taking it or distributing it without a nurse oversight. You should treat it like you would aspirin or Tylenol.
Yes.
Were you guys hear the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Nothing can be on their person or in their locker,
Yes.
anything like that, just like any other medication. And again, I want to say that they said, nurses shall not administer it. We can administer synthetic THC, but not true THC
Okay.
cannabis.
Sticky area.
Yeah,
There is
A lot of detail to work on.
new waters to navigate.
And a lot of
Yes.
forms. A lot of
Yes.
forms of this.
Yeah. yeah.
And this is all still illegal on the federal level though, correct?
I believe we were just talking about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
That-
on the federal level, it's illegal everywhere.
yes,
Just certain states have
Correct.
legalized it.
Yeah.
Correct.
So there's not a match federally.
yeah. And that's one of the big things, federal and state do not coincide.
Good catch.
Which muddies the waters a bit more.
Of course, anyone that's under 18, cannabis is illegal for, because they cannot say that there's any medical value on a Schedule 1.
So our recommendation is table that one,
Yep.
and bring it back. Let them sort it out a little further. But in the meantime, I feel like we're covered right now. So anybody that does need medical marijuana, we just ask them to step off campus and
Yep.
treat it.
Because they were saying also, because the federal law and the state law do not align on the medical cannabis, there's implications to impede special ed reimbursement.
I think the liability issues.
Yeah. So that's something we have to watch too.
And I think that hits all of our costs. We've got the easiest committee.
I know. This one was particularly easy.
This one
Outside of
really
this
was.
medical stuff,
Yeah.
and we can just table that. There was really not.
Kind of funny because the other law conference that I was at did not touch your medical marijuana. A lot of the
I think that
employee
would be
stuff.
subject number one, like that's.
Well,
The hot topic.
yeah, and she, I guess she touched it a little bit, Sarah, but she really said that there's still so much to be developed, you know, or just a lot of details to be
Can
worked
we
on.
look at how other states that have had it a little bit longer, like Colorado and Washington, are handling some of it?
Good. Yeah,
Some of the states that have been doing this a little bit longer might have worked through some of these
issues.
issues a little bit more than Illinois.
Interesting. So,
It's all very interesting.
so if you're okay, Mary, these will go to October for first reading with the exception of the medical one at
Yep.
the end. And
Yeah, that'll work.
we'll move it. What's our time?
Adjourn at, what is it?
17.